welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time to check us out. We've got a great guest today. Doc Coyle from Bad Wolves is here. But before we get to that, real quick, if you could help me out by doing some or all of the following: liking my page on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, subscribing to the show via YouTube or wherever you listen, and finally, writing a review of the show either on iTunes or wherever you listen. Those things would really help me out, and I will forever be grateful to that. Now, on with the show. Today's guest is Doc Coyle. He is the guitarist for the band Bad Wolves, and they've had 4 #1 rock songs on the charts, including their smash hit Zombie, which of course is a cover of the Cranberries song. And before he joined Bad Wolves, he was in a band called God Foribd for like 17 years. I didn't know about this. And he's also filled in for Lamb of God. He's written blogs for VH1 and Metal Sucks. And he also hosts his own podcast, the X-Man podcast with Doc Coyle. And I gotta say, this was one of the most fun interviews I think I've ever done. And we went a little long, probably a lot long. And that's because Doc and I, we went off script and we went down some rabbit holes together, and we talked conspiracy theories and UFOs and politics and the media and a lot more. And it was really interesting stuff to me, so I hope you'll agree. We also talk music, of course, and I get his take on changing singers in Bad Wolves, and of course what happened with Tommy, because I was really curious about his opinion on that. It didn't seem like Bad Wolves had really said much about what happened. So overall, he just has great opinions on a lot of different things, and this episode was a blast for me. I hope you guys enjoy it too. Let me know what you think afterwards, after you listen. Let me know your thoughts. I'd be curious to hear that. Please welcome Doc Coyle to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I've been trying to get my life together, trying to get up earlier. So I got little bags in my eyes. But you know what? I got the coffee. I'm ready to go. All right.
No, you look great, man. I got to tell you, I'll be honest. Bad Wolves fans of you are going to kill me right now. But I thought Bad Wolves, obviously it's a newer band, 2018 or whenever you guys formed. I thought you were like super young. I thought you were like 25, because I'm thinking this is a new band. I didn't know you were in this other band called God Foribd for like 17 years.
Yeah, I was young. So, I went from being the young guy in the band to being like the old fogey in the band.
No, you look great. I don't know. Whatever you're doing, it's working. So you should give secrets on that. Well,
no, listen, I'll tell you, here's the key to not aging. Okay. Don't spend too much time in the sun, and just avoid responsibility.
Wait a minute. No, that doesn't add up, because you have tons of you write blogs, you do podcasts, you're in bands.
But I want to do it. Like, it's not like someone, I do all that stuff because I enjoy it, and I molded my life so that the things I spend my time doing are things I enjoy doing. And then, yes, there are deadlines and there are pressures, but it's all stuff that I enjoy. So,
well, and what's amazing is that you can make money off of it. That's the real amazing part, because there's a lot of people that would love to do things that they enjoy, but the fact most of them can't make money off it or make a living.
Well, I always feel like, at least the level I'm at, you always have to kind of cobble together different income streams. Even with Bad Wolves, I had another job almost the whole time. So I didn't
really.
So I was always, and then I also had the podcast, and I always was doing other things. I would tour with, I toured with Mark Morton from Lamb of God with his solo band. I did dates, with the wedding band with Rob and Kirk from Metallica. I did Shiprocked and played, with the Stowaways on that. So I always feel like if you put all your eggs in one basket in terms of making a living, you're taking a big risk. You're kind of just jumping out without a parachute, because that one thing goes away, then you're kind of sitting there holding the bag, for lack of a better metaphor.
See, I kind of agree with you, because I had somebody else tell me, I was talking about writing this book, and they're like, no, you should just go, there's some book called One Thing. I forget who I don't know. Have you heard of that book called One Thing, where you're supposed to just focus on one thing? And they told me to just go all in on the podcast. And I'm like, I think you got to do a lot of I mean, if you look at Rogan, the most successful podcast ever, he does a million things. I mean, he's a comedian, he's an actor, he hosts TV shows, he does MMA stuff. So yeah.
Well, I think he does focus on a few things, right? It's comedy, it's fighting, and it's his podcast, right? And so he found a way to turn his passions into his career. But I think what he's showing is that most of us are fairly diverse, right? We're not all just like, I just like this one thing and I want to do it 24/7. And I think if you do that, you'll have more of a chance of being successful in that one realm. I just personally, for me, I just get bored. I think there's a rational way to look at it where, hey, if I put all my chips in, I'm going to be really great at this one thing. And I think I think that logic, especially like with things like social media, right? Like, let's say someone goes to your Instagram and you're a guitar player, and all it is videos of you playing guitar and showing your rig and doing lessons. That's your brand. So we know what you do. If you're a model and it's your everyday. If I go to your page and it's just pictures of you modeling and looking cool, and that's your thing. Where me, I do so many things. Sometimes I'm like, I think I'm just too all over the place. It's like sometimes I'm posting about the movies I like, and sometimes here's a video of me playing guitar, here's me on vacation. It's a little, so I do think streamlining things to some degree, there's a big benefit of that as well. So it's just depends what your strategy is.
Yeah, I think I like your strategy better too, because I'm into so many different things. And even my podcast, I look at a lot of my peers with podcasts and they only interview musicians. And I got to have some authors on. I try to get some movie TV people and just other experts because it's interesting. It's like I like to mix it up.
Yeah, I see me. In this weird way, I'm with my show. I'm always kind of following the listeners because usually when I deviate from the normal type of guests, the numbers go down.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
So I have to some degree, understand what people come to the show for. But then when it makes sense for me to pique my own interest, it's like I have certain people because I'd rather just talk to smart people and interesting people rather than a famous person.
That's a good point. I really agree. I've had some really interesting authors, like conspiracy theory people. Like, I mean, it's really fascinating. Even if you don't agree with everything they say, I like hearing people's opinions. It's really interesting.
Yeah. What kind of conspiracy?
Have you ever heard of Jay Dyer?
No.
Yeah, you should look him up. He's really, and it was interesting because I would say like, hey, I heard you said this about this thing. And he would go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I didn't say that. I said, it's certainly plausible that this could, he was very careful in his wording, really smart guy, really interesting stuff. But yeah.
Conspiracy focus. I feel like the conspiracy mind is a particular kind of filter for looking at the world. And usually it's not very careful choosing words.
Yeah, I mean, it can be for sure. Well, then there's people, I think, and this guy, he actually works with Alex Jones sometimes. And that guy is totally different because Alex Jones just says so much shit. And it's like a lot of it is total bullshit, but some of it's right. But he doesn't seem to care about whether he's saying the truth or not. This guy is like, no, he wants to make sure anything he says is worded correctly. And so I don't know. I think it's interesting to explore some of those topics, especially like the UFO thing. And now the government's coming out and saying, yeah, there are UFOs. We don't know what they are, but these are real. There's this footage. And I don't know if you follow that at all, but it's fascinating.
I'm very, very into that, but I've been into that for years. And I think it's one of the most obvious conspiracies in that, like, to some degree, I think the term has lost its meaning, right? So only thing conspiracy means is that what the people who have control of certain information, in this case, the government, right? The idea that UFOs or some beings or something has been essentially entered the public zeitgeist since the 50s or Roswell. Or was that 40s, late 40s? What was Roswell?
Might have been 47 or so.
Yeah. So around the time we started developing nuclear weapons, and people forget. So when Roswell happened, it was in the newspaper as if it wasn't just like one newspaper. It was like, this is here. There are UFOs. They crash landed. They found, like, that was the official story. And then they changed the story and like, no, it's weather balloons. So it's clear from all the evidence that, you know, if you just look at evidence, and you don't have to go to some crazy website, just stuff that's out there, that you have video footage, photographs, eyewitness testimony for people that are credible, radar. I mean, under every metric, there is just so much is overwhelming evidence that something is here. You can't without a doubt say it's alien, you know, but that the government knows something and isn't telling us about it. That is the definition of a conspiracy, that people with power are conspiring together to not divulge another truth. So that's at the heart of it. So the fact that this stuff is coming out, for me, is not really revelatory, because it's just kind of like, I feel like the rest of the world is catching up where I'm already at.
Right. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Yeah. And I always take all this stuff with a grain of salt. Like, I think it's dangerous when people jump to a conclusion one way or the other, like 100%, I believe aliens exist, 100% aliens do not exist. Like, I think it's always good to keep an open, like, you might lean one way or the other with any of these issues, but
even with that, I don't lean. It is mathematically a certainty that life exists somewhere in the expanse of the universe. Now, whether that life is in contact with us, is we can't say, right? So
right, because isn't that mathematically the fact, like, for them to, there is life probably somewhere, but mathematically, for them to be alive at the same time as us, and for us to come in contact with them, that is the mathematical rarity, because the universe is infinite. It's so big. How the hell would you ever find anybody?
Well, I watched this one YouTube video that basically explained all the scenarios in which life may exist, and if it does, why we don't have contact with it. And it was about 10 different scenarios. All of them were actually pretty kind of mind-bending and crazy when you think, like, for example, so one is, so let's say there's aliens, right? But they literally don't, like, they can't communicate with us, right? Like, so if you tried to talk to a pig and you wanted to, like, the pig was trying to tell you something, like, you don't know what a pig is, or a deer, right? Even though we're way smarter than they are, we actually have no way to actually really know what they want or what they care about. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can follow their patterns and go, okay, they're motivated by food, or they're motivated to procreate, or whatever. But there's all these different elements that go into it. But to me, it's the most fascinating thing in our lifetime, and hopefully there's more that is revealed. But to me, using deductive reasoning, the technology that's shown, the pervasiveness, the vastness of it, to me, there are certain stories that are just, oh, China has it. Oh, so you're telling me China has this technology of silent.
Yeah, that's what my buddy was trying to tell me today with this information that came out. He's saying, "Oh, it's China." I'm like, but the first evidence was 2004, so they're waiting 17 years to.
But the question is, okay, let's say another nation had this technology, right?
Yeah.
Silent, it could break the speed of sound, turn, do 90-degree turns, go into the ocean without destroying itself,
disable the Americans' weapons on the jets.
But they're not using this technology for anything else but to just fly around America.
Right.
What? Right. So it's not like they have better internet and better, like, commercial air technology, better, just robotics, nanotech, AI. Like, they're not applying in any of these other areas except this one thing, right? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So and it's also technology. Any technology you have, you can always trace back, right, its roots, because all technology, current technology, is built on previous technology. So you can see it almost like an evolutionary thing, where you see, like, the tadpole turning into a man.
Yeah,
like,
it's linear. Yeah.
You can follow it. So it just really doesn't happen where something goes from 0 to 60 overnight, right? It's technology is very incremental, and even certain things that happen quickly, like robotics or computers, even that took decades, and it's like very slow, right? You don't go from the iPhone 1 to the iPhone 10 in 1 year, right? That took 12 years or whatever. So I don't know. It's I don't know if that's what we were supposed to talk about on here.
No, that stuff's fast. See, I love that stuff too. I'm sure some of our listeners might have tuned out, but I think it's fascinating. I could talk that stuff all day. And I mean, there's so many things like that. And then, like you said, some of those quote unquote conspiracy theories are just, factual things like MK Ultra, these government programs, Operation Paperclip, and all these things. I mean, they're fact. They're not fringe, conspiracy. Maybe this happened. Like, these are things that actually happen. And so
some of those things I think are just really just how intelligence organizations operate. They operate using clandestine methods because they're operating in service of national security. So that's the whole point. The whole point of their organizations is to be secretive.
Sure.
That's to control information. So to me, that is not necessarily, it's not a conspiracy if that's what it's supposed to do.
But it's kind of scary, some of the stuff that they did to people. And then when you look at, what's the guy, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, he was a victim of those, or a participant, I guess you would say, of the MK Ultra experiments. And so it makes you wonder, is that what caused him to kind of go off the deep end a little bit? Like, I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, yeah, of course. But I think people also have a difficulty understanding that those organizations evolve kind of in the same way society has evolved. So if you go back to the 50s and 60s and 30s and 40s, how many areas of life can we look at that were way less humane than they are? When you look at race
for sure,
gender relations, when you look how, if you were gay in the 50s and it was found out, you would literally get blackballed, you would lose your job, you'd be thrown out of your community. I mean, so things in general have gotten more humane, and I like I said, maybe this is just me being my own personal bias, but I do believe when things like MK Ultra they become public, when the Tuskegee experiments, things like that become public knowledge, the way the FBI treated Martin Luther King and the Black Panthers, and that stuff comes out, J. Edgar Hoover, all the terrible things he did. I think those organizations are reforming in the same way societies are reforming, because people know about this stuff more, and they're more there's more scrutiny now on governmental agencies than ever. So I think it doesn't mean they're perfect or they're not doing shady things. It's not that. But even when these organizations and people do things that we consider to be immoral, I think they think they're doing it for the right reasons, right? They think they're protecting the country. They think there's some greater good, even though. And so a lot of times people will do evil shit for quote unquote good reasons. And that's not an excuse, but it's just an examination of human nature.
Right. Yeah. No, I'd like to think that we are getting better. And as a society, I mean, sometimes it feels like we're moving backwards when I see stuff and I just shake my head and cringe. And but yeah, I'd like to think that, I mean, I guess there's ups and downs for sure. And
progress is not a linear road. It often is you 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 1 step forward, it is a herky-jerky experience. I was watching Netflix had a documentary about the 14th Amendment that described all the stuff like after slavery and how that process of the laws affected Black Americans after slavery, because it wasn't like, oh, you're free and that you have all these rights. There was all legislation put because the Emancipation Proclamation happened. And in the sense, it was all this like, it's a different world. And just because that one law was passed, it's not like people are going to go along with that, and especially in America, where the states have X amount of rights to exert their own power, and localities and municipalities and townships can do. So that's just the way it is. Like things just doesn't get better. And sometimes things get worse, so it's history is the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. I don't know. Something.
I never heard that one. That's interesting. I hope so. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. You look some of the history of, the world and especially our country. Yeah. There's a lot of things that are just awful. But then there's also a lot of great things and a lot of great technology that's been, like you said, technology has gotten so much better. And I mean, sometimes I guess that could be a bad thing too, but
listen, technology, it's like anything else, right? Fire can be used to heat your home, cook your meals, or burn your house down. Water can be used. We literally need water and oxygen we need to live, but it can drown you or destroy your home. Hammer can build a house or beat your skulls of your family in, right? Everything is everything is a double-edged sword. And so very few things are either 100% bad or 100% good. It's just how we utilize them.
Totally. I didn't really, so you're really into a lot of this stuff. I mean, I've listened to a few of your podcasts. I've heard you talking about this stuff a little bit, some other interviews you've done. Did you read? So you read a lot and you watch a lot of documentaries and things?
Yeah. I mean, I use the word read with, liberal terms in that, I listen to books on tape probably more often than
that counts
as much as I used to, but I'm just a purveyor of information. But I feel like I've also taken a step back to some degree, because I think, at least with regard to current events, there's a lot of smoke and kind of the 24-hour news cycle and kind of making kind of mountains out of molehills, I think can make you a little crazy. I have, I think this is something with age. I noticed with my parents and during the kind of Trump era where people were so clued in, they felt like what's going on CNN or something is if I'm not clued into this thing, then I'm kind of not doing my due diligence as a citizen to understand what's going on. I think there's moments where it's really important, but there's also diminishing returns in terms of risk, in terms of how it's actually helping your life. And I think if we get too clued in, especially to partisan politics, it's really detrimental to your well-being. And if you're clued into one side, you become skewed and you're only getting one narrative, and it completely warps, I think, your ability to kind of be centered, and centered, even that sounds like I'm being a centrist. I don't mean that. I just mean kind of like spiritually and mentally being more just at ease with the world and not thinking the whole thing's on fire all the time, which I feel like people have this peak anxiety they're at all the time because they're hearing about this terrible thing that's happening and this legislation and this person's getting elected and this war that's happening over here, and they're tapping the phones and the drones. It's, what I'm saying?
Yes. Because that's what their job is as a media. Their job is to get you to watch. If everything's perfect, you're going to turn the news off and you're going to go but if you're scared, you want to know what happens next. So they're always pushing the fear. Both sides do it. They're just different stories, I think.
But one point I try and push is that people need to expand what they think of as the media. The media is your Twitter feed. The media is
true
YouTube vlogger. The media is podcasts like this. So you can not even ever watch cable news. And by the way, way more people listen to Joe Rogan's podcast than watch cable news. Okay?
That's true. Yeah. Comedians tell me that back in the day, going on the Tonight Show was the thing to do. Now it's be on Joe Rogan's podcast. It's way bigger than that stuff.
If you're a comedian and Joe Rogan gives you the cosign, you have a career. That's it. He's a kingmaker.
Yeah.
You can almost do it overnight. And I mean, I legitimately think, for example, if Joe Rogan endorsed Joe Biden, right, I think it would have been a blowout. I don't think it would have been close. But just because he was that guy is old and he can't talk and, I'd rather vote for Trump, right? That was just enough to make, even though, Biden won by 7 million votes, whatever. But I think he's that powerful. The only problem is he doesn't realize it. He kind of just does this thing almost like he's not. I don't know. So, and I respect Joe Rogan, especially being someone in the podcast field. I think you have to recognize what he's done, how unique it is, and how paradigm.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, God, this stuff has been fascinating. I haven't even got to any of my music questions that I had for you. But I did think it was interesting too, if we could talk about music for a little bit, that, like I said, because I thought that you were younger, but you're kind of closer to my age. So you grew up with the same influences, like the Megadeth, the Symphony of Destruction. That was one of the first videos that you saw. And November Rain. That's when I started getting into rock too.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a great era. I mean, it's the last, not the last great era for MTV, because they still had another good 10, 15 years in them. But yeah, it was an incredible time. I loved the thing I always say about that era, even though the rock and metal was the stuff that I was most gravitated towards. I love it. It was diverse. That's what I loved about it. There was R&B,
Yes.
there was hip hop, and there was grunge, and there was, and they even, I got into a lot of the 80s bands, because they would do the top 200 videos of all time, and there, you see Tears for Fears, and you see Def
Yeah.
and Dire Straits and things like that. So it was kind of the way I am when I get into any thing, whether it's music or comic books or movies, is I go all in, and I just want to know about the history, and who
Right.
influenced the person, and they're wearing that band's t-shirt, let me go check that out. I'd get the the liner notes, and like I remember there was this band in Jersey, this like metal band, and I got their demo, and in the demo sleeve it like put all the albums that influenced their album.
Oh,
I went and it was just like an education. Like, I need to get this album, I need to get this album. So, but I'm just the type of person that just goes down.
the rabbit hole.
Yeah, yeah,
Me
and
too. Yeah.
because I think it's fascinating, and
Hmm.
I just have great reverence for history and the past, and that it's, to some degree, I think there's a certain type of people that feel like it's never been better than ever, right? Whatever the new thing out is the best, and there's some people who like always think the old thing was the best. I think it's a combination of both.
I agree. Yeah.
But I do think you cannot uh certain eras, the way they did things, like it'll never be like that
Right.
because of circumstances, right? So if you see a film like Alien, right? Like there was a
Mm.
way they shot films, and there was a way they edited films, and there's a way they like they're like it is completely of its era. It's an
Hmm.
artifact of its time. And you can make something theoretically as good today, but you can't do it like that because you don't have the same tools, you don't have the same so understanding that, and going, hey, like when I listen to Led Zeppelin 4, like it's never going to be like there's
Right.
nothing going to be like that's that good with that thing. And
Yeah.
so the fact you can go back and find that historically there's just all this hidden treasure out there. I always love that, just discovering things in the past, and now this is the best time to do that because we have
For sure.
Spotify and Netflix and uh
YouTube.
yeah, YouTube, just watching, like one of my favorite things is going to YouTube and just pulling up old shows, White Zombie from 94. What can I find?
Nice.
You know, that's a real fun thing for me.
Yeah, that's cool. And then, because you started getting into the heavier stuff, obviously like Slayer, Pantera, but originally you liked Metallica and Megadeth, but Slash was actually your favorite, and you still say he's your favorite guitar player?
Oh, yeah, still my favorite guitar player.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, it's kind
Yeah.
of surprising because your bands obviously are more heavier, but you can appreciate his technique and stuff and style and
Well, I mean, with Slash, I mean, as a just purely as a lead guitar player, he has tone, right? So
Mhm.
you hear his guitar and it's him. His style is so um recognizable, and his ability to compose as a lead guitar player, there's really only a few people that I think can do it as well as that in terms of melody. David Gilmour from Pink
Pink Floyd,
Floyd, um maybe some of the Eagles stuff. There's just very Brian May,
Queen.
brilliantly melodic. So it's this idea of kind of style and composition, kind of, and then maybe outside of Hendrix, he's our most iconic figure, in terms of, just like I said, you can see a fucking silhouette of Slash,
Yeah.
and that, as a I would say there's a difference between a musician and a rock star. Thankfully, Slash is both, but he has that cool factor. And ultimately, what people don't realize is that often is actually what makes 12-year-old kids want to pick up a guitar, is they just see someone who's just a badass, and they're like, and you just gravitate to, I want to be a badass. I'm a nerd. No one likes me, and and that there's that kind of aspirational aspect of that, especially as I've kind of moved into different realms as a player, and gotten to, with Bad Wolves, enter this kind of mainstream rock world. It's like you want to fill these shoes of being something a little bit bigger than just a guitar player, right? And you have to be the performer, you have to be the larger than life, and listen, it's given where I'm at, it's a little more self-aware. I don't think Slash thinks about being Slash. I think he just is, and that's the best.
Yeah.
That's why he's so cool, because it doesn't feel contrived. But it is something. But me being an analytical person, it is something that say, hey, set your sights high and try and be as try and model the best after the best that have ever done it. So
yeah, well, you're certainly on your way. You're doing really well. But yeah, so before Bad Wolves, we got to talk a little bit about God Foribd. This band, you started when you're 16, and like I said, 17 years. That's a long time. But I mean, I don't know how I'd never heard of this band. You guys did a lot of big shows with Five Finger Death Punch, Kill Switch Engage, played with Marilyn Manson, Lamb of God. You did Ozzfest. But what were the highlights or lowlights of your time with God Foribd? What stands out to you?
I mean, Ozzfest was huge for us. I mean, it was basically the history of metal on one tour. It was Sabbath, Judas Priest, Slayer, Slipknot. You had, Ensemble was on there with Supergiant Ritual. And then the entire kind of scene that we came from was on that tour. Hatebreed, Lamb of God, Unearth, Atreyu, Darkest Hour, Throwdown, Devil Driver. So it was just a real pivotal moment for heavy music. And it was incredible to kind of, because at that point, we had been grinding, in the local scene, like I said, since 96, 97, but as a touring band internationally for about 4 or 5 years. So it felt like we had gotten to a certain plateau that to some way, when we started, we had very humble beginnings, very underground. There wasn't really a scene for what we were doing. We were always an odd band on any bill. We weren't quite death metal. We weren't quite hardcore. We weren't quite thrash metal. We were this kind of a hodgepodge. And then after we were doing that in like 2000, 2001, those bands like Shadows Fall and Lamb of God and Killswitch Engage all started to come up. So the scene started to form. So that was a big highlight, and also doing something like that with a band like Slipknot. When you're like in close proximity to, at the time, even though they were on the second stage, they were the biggest band on Ozzfest, right? And we got to do off days with Slipknot as well. So we were doing Ozzfest days, then doing like arena shows on our days off with Slipknot, Slayer, and Hatebreed. And you're kind of you get a first person kind of close look at how the biggest and best bands operate, and that has a big impact on you, because you go, okay, so this is kind of what it looks like to be that badass.
So what did you learn? What do the biggest and best bands do? Like, is there one thing that they're all doing differently than the other bands?
Well, I mean, I think one thing you start to understand how songs translate in like bigger environments, and how if I'm in the back of an arena, what kind of translates, what kind of sonically, like what sounds good, what works, so that had a big influence on the record we made after that, this album called Constitution of Treason. We had on that cycle, like I said, touring with Slipknot, touring with Machine Head, and you see it really had an impact on how the song sounded, and kind of trying to play to a bigger environment.
Okay, interesting.
And it just changes. It just puts the bar here. It goes, okay, like, when you see people like Slipknot and Machine Head, the way they get ready for a show and their mentality, it's a level of focus. It's a level, they take it so seriously. It's not a joke for them. It's like they're going to war, it almost looks like a football team.
Okay.
Out there, like they're,
and even still at that point, because a lot of those bands you mentioned at this time you're touring, they could probably just coast on their laurels and just kind of like, hey, I'm freaking Slipknot. We don't need to try hard. We've already made it. But they're still at that point. They still want to prove themselves every night.
You made the perfect point, and that's the same thing I noticed. Like, oh, they're the ones that have the least to prove took it the most seriously, and so that, to me at least, the evidence is that's why they're at where they're at, is because they're not taking days off. They put that level of intensity into every level, right, of their craft. So when they're making an album, even though I'm not there when they make an album, based on what I saw and witnessed and understanding the people, they put that same effort into it. And if you're not, the same thing, I remember we did a tour 2009, the Mayhem Fest, and God Foribd shared a tour bus with Behemoth, and being around Nurgle every day from Behemoth, and just the way his mind works and his discipline and his focus and the way that's around that band, and they weren't nearly as big as they are now, you can just see why they would be successful. And so, and for me, it kind of laid out all these things of just, I don't know, a lot of people think they should be successful based on, oh, we're good or we're talented or we work hard. And you're like, yeah, but the people that are really operating on a different level, kind of like, you to really be on that level, you have to, I don't know, it's like a frequency you have to tune into as a human being. And it's something I think I've breached, and I've understood it, and it's another kind of aspiration where I'm like, I understand what it takes, because I don't think you can coach your way to that. You have to kind of be, it's like when you like watch that Michael Jordan documentary. Did you watch that?
Oh yeah.
And you understand, oh, like he doesn't think like normal people. Like he's kind of almost slightly pathological.
Yeah. He's driven. I mean, it's whatever people have, I don't know, people are driven for different reasons. And that's why I like doing these podcasts, because I like to find out what makes people so driven to do things and achieve such greatness. But yeah, it's really fascinating to see when people do turn it on. I think that's something that's inside of everybody if they just find the right motivation.
Well, but it's also one thing I haven't totally figured out is there's always a sacrifice. So if you got 10 acorns, right, and you put 9 acorns into the work basket, then that you only got that 1 acorn for relationship, family, health, right? Whatever. Like, so sometimes to function so well on one thing, it's very difficult to do that and maybe be a fully formed human being to some degree. So
yeah, you said you kind of struggle with that sometimes, that you just want to focus and do creative things and kind of go into that hole and just do that. But when you have to come out of the hole and like pay the bills or like deal with taxes or something, you're just like, wait, what do I do? Like, I just want to go in and be creative. That's all.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It's kind of, I think the challenge of getting to like the next plateau, because there's there's your career, right? Okay, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to make enough money to survive and thrive and whatever. And then there's like, okay, I'm actually a human being who wants to keep progressing. Okay. And I'm at that age where a lot of people go, okay, well, this is kind of who I am. Maybe I'm just not gonna change, right? So I'm just in a period now where I'm trying to challenge myself to go, okay, I don't really want to do this thing, but sometimes doing that thing is like eating your vegetables, right? It's like a thing that it's not fun, but if you do it, you'll feel better.
Right. That's true.
So I'm trying to kind of crack this mental code of doing things that are not intuitive, that my gut says don't do it, but maybe my gut is an idiot because it doesn't want to change,
Yeah.
Sometimes this idea of doing something that doesn't feel comfortable, but hopefully I'll grow and kind of get to this next phase of evolution as a human being. And listen, that's wrapped into maturity, uh, just all of these elements of traversing traditional adulthood that have been challenges for me, and a lot of that is reflective of the career path I've chosen. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
that is just reflective, just in a lot of ways, I've decided to kind of be this nonconformist individual that kind of pushes against the pressures of normalized society. Uh, and so I have this kind of internal dialogue that's always like going back and forth about not wanting to. A lot of things that are normal for other people are very alien to me.
Yeah, yeah, I heard you talk about that. It was interesting. But so after God Forbid ends, I mean, a big thing that you did too was you moved to LA, and the advice you got was just say yes to everything until you have to say no. So you're trying to do all these different gigs, and the first gig you got was this thing where you played with Robert Trujillo from Metallica and Whitfield Crane of Ugly Kid Joe. And there was all this like, star-studded audience with Ozzy and Duff and Stuart Copeland of The Police was there. And then you posted that on social media. And so you learn to kind of help promote yourself, right? And kind of act as your own press agent.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it's what you have to do, because there's this very kind of, especially in LA, there's this industry thing of, you go out to a bar, go out to a show, and oh, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? You see some people. And the thing we kind of do is talk about the shit we're working on, right?
Sure.
Because to some degree, my time before God Forbid, my time before or after God Forbid, but before Bad Wolves, I was just my own person, right? Just looking for projects and doing things. And so you kind of always have to have a story, right? So if you go up to a friend you haven't seen in a while who's maybe in the industry, hey, what's going on? What you been working on? And they just go, nothing. That's not a very good story.
Right.
I'm doing this. I was in this recording session and I got this tour coming. It's a little bit of, I guess, outwardly facing propaganda to just let people know you're doing things and you're busy, because to some degree, I think if once you're not in the band that you were known for,
Mm-hmm.
so some people you almost stop existing, right?
Yeah. People forget about you. Out of
But
sight, out of mind.
yeah, but honestly, personally, for me, it was actually very liberating to, because I was bartending and I was teaching
Is
guitar at
that
some
not
different.
degrading to go from playing Ozzfest to bartending? I mean, because I hear those stories all the time, but I'm always like, in my head, I'm like, if I was at that level, I would feel like it would be hard to go down. I feel like it would be
Not
hard.
degrading. I actually got paid to bartend.
What, you didn't get paid at Ozzfest?
So we did a buy-on. So almost all the bands
Oh.
on the second stage had to pay $70,000 to get up the tour.
Mm.
We had to take that tour support, and then we also had to take another like $100,000 to pay for the tour, for the bus and the crew, and our per diem was $10 a day. So on Ozzfest, I made $70 a week
Wow.
for 10 weeks. But I didn't. But here's
So
the
wait, the
thing.
record company buys it on. You were on a record company at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we pay for that ultimately, right?
Mm-hmm.
So God Forbid is still unrecouped to our record label, and half of the money we owe to the label is just Ozzfest. So we won't see any royalties on any record sales until that money is recouped, which is basically probably never. So
Unless some big movie chooses a God Forbid song and makes you a couple million or something.
well, that doesn't work that way. We'd have
Really?
to sell basically the equivalent of like 300,000 albums just to recoup.
Oh.
So if that happened, or stream the equivalent of 300,000 albums. So we'd have to get 1,500 times 300,000. That's how many streams.
Oh yeah, that's a lot. Cause yeah, I hear stories about the streaming. It just doesn't, even like Rolling Stones or something isn't hardly making any money off Spotify and such.
Well, but they're also, it's like,
Not that they need it, but
that's what I'm saying. It's just, you just put in the money. It's like, here, you made $370. All right. It's like, they're fine.
yeah, they'll be fine. So, so you said during this time when you were in LA before you joined Bad Wolves, there were some tryouts for bands like you were going to just work, I guess, as a hired gun. It wasn't really your cup of tea. I mean, you do end up joining Lamb of God for a little bit on a tour, but was there what other bands did you turn down?
I'm trying to think if I turned down specifically. I mean, I've had like almost like I had to turn down. This is when God Foribd was still active, like filling in on bass for Machine Head for a tour. Because God Foribd, I keep getting my bands mixed up. Because God Foribd was booked, and then I remember running into Killswitch guys on one of their tours, and they said they were gonna call me to fill in for Adam D, but again, God Foribd was booked and things like that. So it's not as much a situation of just turning down gigs. It's just when I was in LA and I was just like, hey, I'm just gonna try out for stuff and look for kind of anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized during that process that I think, I remember I did this one tryout for this one artist, and it was just music was really weird, just odd arrangements. I remember I was like transcribing the songs, and it was just taking me like hours just to transcribe because every part's like, oh, this part's in 5/8, and here's this motif, and it was like, and the music was weird, and I just wasn't really into it.
Sure.
And I was just like, you know what? If I'm not into the music and it's just a gig and I'm just a kind of faceless person over here strumming chords, I don't think that's really what I want to do. And around that time, I ended up getting a gig writing freelance for vh1.com.
Right. Yeah.
And that was really great because they had a pretty giant readership, and I was charged as the modern metal columnist. So essentially, I do, a lot of stuff was very list oriented. It's like the first piece I think I did, or first big piece I did, was like the 18 bands you need to hear in 2016 or whatever year it was, and that it. So people, because it's vh1.com, and the funny thing is when people regard, especially something like that, which is an opinion piece, people were like, VH1 thinks this. And it's like, well, no, it's what I think. I'm not
right.
I don't VH1. I'm not like, it's like there was a meeting and we all said, all right.
Yeah, you're just the author of that article.
And but almost no matter what you put, people like on things like Facebook would just post that, like they'd share it, and it would, and hundreds of thousands of people would read these articles, and and listen, half of them would think I was an idiot, and the bands I did include on there would thank me, and it kind of gave me credibility right away as a writer, even though I'd been writing at that point on my own, doing stuff like Metal Sucks on my own website for about 5 or 6 years. And then I got hired to write on another website called Creative Live, which was a little more education oriented and industry oriented. And then it kind of reconfigured the way I was seeing things as well, because I was like, okay, if I'm doing this and I have a skill set here, and I seem to be pretty good at this, I don't have to be so desperate to get a gig.
Okay.
Right? So, and then I was like, I can be choosier and really just find something that suits where I want to be. So, and then I think you go out and you do a bunch of things and see what sticks, but then you kind of find some gigs that work out. So I started touring with Meta Cohen, who is a really well-known drummer, female drummer, and she got famous doing covers on YouTube. And she had this massive audience, and she made an original album with this guy Sahaj Tickerton, who's the main singer-songwriter.
Yeah, I had him on. I listened to your interview with him too. Great guy.
Great guy. And he brought me into that. And that was a really great project to be a part of. I thought the music was great. Me and Maytal got along really well. Everyone in the band was cool. And it was fun. It was like a fun thing to like, it was basically a studio record. And it's like, oh, let's try and play the studio record live and put a band together and rehearse. And we did a tour with Queensryche, and I was like, oh, this is a cool thing. And we're out here and we're doing the thing. And people, the band went over well, and it was fun. And we did the one tour, and we split with the singer. and then she just never replaced the singer.
Oh,
So it
so that
was
was the end of that.
literally, it was funny because we came off tour and I was like kind of psyched, like, all right, we got a cool thing. And it was like kind of radio silence and there was just not much to do. And that's literally right around the time John hit me up about doing Bad Wolves, but it
From
was
Bad
at the
Wolves. Okay.
it was called Eye of Tongues. He was like, yeah, you know, because Max, who's the original guitar player, didn't really want to be in the band. He just wanted to be like a behind the scenes guy. And I was like,
Oh,
so that's how that opportunity. I just started, and literally it was just all of a sudden I had time. I didn't really have a project. I was at my other band, Vegas Nerve, that we had done some shows that summer, and I was like kind of writing music for that, but nothing that I could really sink my teeth into. So it was just like, and that's just how things work out. One thing kind of ends, another door closes, another door opens, and then
yeah. Well, it worked out. I mean, that first single, The Zombie, obviously everyone knows that song. I sent it to one of my friends last night. He goes, "Oh, I've never heard that, but I love it. It's better than the original." And I didn't know this part of it though, that the original singer of the Cranberries was supposed to sing on the track, and on the day that she was set to record with you, that's the day she passed away. What are
yeah,
the odds of that? That's just bizarre.
yeah, it is stranger than fiction, I think. And like I said, it's something that I wasn't necessarily involved with setting it up or even had a great awareness that was happening. It was something I had heard about,
Mm-hmm.
but you hear things like that, right? It almost sounds fake, right? It's like, oh, we're looking to actually get Dolores from Cranberries to sing on the song. I'm like, and it sounds like someone's bullshitting. Yeah, sure. Um, and apparently it was happening, and
Would it have been co-leads then, or was it going to be just her singing?
no, I think it was just going to be, I don't know how it was going to be set up, but usually it's like, one verse and chorus.
Okay.
Not sure. I don't, who knows
Yeah.
how the arrangement was going to go. Uh, but yeah, so, and it's a tragedy. Of course, she died way too young. And, but somehow we got brought into that and we were a brand new band and we were a
Mm-hmm.
band. We had a couple songs out, no record out, no touring. So it was like this kind of blank canvas, and we were basically part of that story,
Mm-hmm.
And so the decision was made to release the song.
Yeah. And I love too that you guys are donating the proceeds of that song to her children. That's like a really cool move.
Well, honestly, if we didn't do that or something like that, I think it would have looked it would have looked bad.
I mean, you'd be surprised how many people don't do stuff like that. So,
Yeah, I mean, but listen, I think being removed from it a few years from now, it's easy to kind of look at it as like it was, oh, you could have do that. I listen, that was tough. It was so bittersweet, right?
mm-hmm.
All this attention and get kind of a leg up in terms of your career, but it is on the back of something really tragic.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time we were going through that, I tried to just keep that in my mind that, oh, this is a cool thing for your career, but it's at it's because of something terrible, and that's emotionally a very tough thing to deal with if you're actually thinking about it, if you're actually keeping that.
Well, I think you guys kind of brought the song back to life. And so I think it was definitely a positive thing, especially if you're donating the proceeds to her children. I think that's like all really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, I know, but it's still just like, even like when we were shooting the music video, the whole time I'm just trying to think about her, right? Like I'm legitimately like trying to be in that, like almost like mourning, like being contemplative and being mindful of the somberness of what that kind of meant. And then even like playing the song live, like it became almost this symbol of loss. And so we play the song live and people be crying because it completely changed the the context of kind of what the song meant, because obviously it's a political song about very particular historical events, and then kind of being recontextualized to kind of connect to the singer and this artist who passed away. So listen, it's a lot. It's something that, like I said, it's not, I feel no ownership over it at all. I just feel like I was just this passenger in this kind of rocket ship that just had all the cascade of emotions and ups and downs and kind of one event, but it was a life-changing event.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And then another really cool thing you guys did, I don't even know if you remember this, but there was a kid from Phoenix. Do you remember Casey Jones? He sang that song, your version of it, karaoke. The video went viral. And then you guys brought him up on stage to sing with you when you guys played in Phoenix. That is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, that happened a few times. We would
really,
yeah, I mean, we'd bring kids up to sing, and we bring just people if they were in the meet and greet, and they're like, "Oh, I'm a singer." I'll say, "Oh, we'll call," and we'd bring people on all the time,
wow,
things like that. Because if you bring someone, we're doing some of these arena shows or amphitheaters, and there's 10,000 people out there. That's like the highlight of their life. So it's
for sure. Yeah, you gave that kid a story to tell and a highlight of his life for sure.
It's awesome. Yeah. No, listen, things like that. It's like you have the good fortune to kind of be in this position to do these monumental shows, and just giving anyone a little taste of that. It's like the least we can do, and it's fun for us because they're up there beaming and excited and scared and everything. And you're like, it's like, hey, come share in this like crazy circus.
Yeah, that's like you kind of get to be Santa Claus a little bit. I think some of this stuff.
Yeah, there's actually another video where Ivan Moody from Five Finger, he's in the crowd, or he's like walking from because he didn't come from behind stage, he came from like in front of the barricade, and I guess it was raining or something.
Yeah,
he had an umbrella, and he just comes on stage and just takes my mic and just starts singing "Zombie" with us. It was fucking.
I'll have to check that out. That's on YouTube.
Yeah, dude, it has a ton of views too.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. Yeah, so I mean, you've had other hits. You had 3 other #1 rock songs, and then "Hear Me Now" was #2, and then "Learn to Walk Again" a top 10 song. So the band's kicking ass. Now the Tommy leaves the band, and you never said. Did he say why he left? People speculated. I don't know. You guys didn't say. I don't know if I can ask you if I.
He said a lot of things, so.
But you guys have never. I mean, he said he left, and he blamed it on political differences or disagreements. You guys kind of just took the high road, and
a lie, but
that's a lie.
Yeah, it's a lie. I mean, he's just saying. He's just think about it, right? You're in a situation where you're not in the band anymore. There's a separation or something, and you want a narrative that's going to work for you. He went and raised $200,000 off of that idea. So it's like, it's a narrative that worked, and we said nothing, because we felt that it just wasn't the right time to kind of address those things. I mean, and there's a lot of disagreements about what we should say, what we shouldn't say, but the band was in a situation where we felt we were going to be able to work out a deal, to have him exit, but yeah, that's not what it's about. And I'm not going to talk about all the actual things right now, but he's saying what's working for him, and and it's unfortunate, it's because it's become a very, very divisive situation. It's become harrowing, where we've been, people that are supposed to be our fans, just like, you're nothing, you're over, I'm not going to support the band. I mean, not like a lot of people. I mean,
wow.
So it's a tough thing. It's something I never really anticipated. I never thought I'd be in a situation where we'd be carrying on without Tommy. It's not something I thought would happen. But it's really unfortunate, and we're kind of in this weird time period now where it's like where we have a new singer, we have a record that's pretty much done, and we're, you know, trying to just finish everything up, but we haven't given it to the people yet. So it's this weird kind of negative space, like purgatory type time. And like I said, there's certain things that we don't feel comfortable talking about publicly.
But did he quit, or was he fired, or was it a mutual splitting?
Well, I'll say this. He literally could not be fired. He literally could not be fired. So
because you have a deal that you guys have or signed.
Me and John were co-owners 50%.
Okay.
So if the deal was set up, so literally no one could be fired.
Okay.
So it's only, you know, hey, I don't want to be in the band with you anymore. At that point, there's no band, but Tommy was cool with letting us continue on at the time. But I think in that situation, people want to save face, you know, and go, I quit. But I was also kicked out because of cancel culture. Well, which one is it? Did you quit or did you get, you know what I'm saying? Like,
okay. Yeah.
He's saying what he needs to say to, for a narrative that for a certain group of people that want to believe that. Like I said, we haven't even put out a narrative, so it's not like there's a counter to that. But and there's a good chance, right, that if this comes out and he hears it, he'll go on live and say terrible things about me. And
you think I saw terrible things about you? You seem so cool and nice.
Oh, you haven't. You haven't been following this.
I haven't. Well, apparently not enough. Yeah, I just knew that he left and he had said some things, and like your guys' statement was very like just very 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 short and very sweet, and there wasn't a lot of reason. So that's why I was just curious. I was like, wait, what happened? I don't really understand. Like,
I'm of the mind, you know, in general, that we can disagree agreeably.
Sure.
Right? And I personally believe in being graceful in life, and that it's not necessarily the best tact to air your dirty laundry everywhere you go. That has not been really respected on the other side of this. Like I said, you haven't been following it, but it's been as ugly as it could possibly be. So, but I'm not going to go into details about that. If you know, you know. There's ways to find out. But
I saw a little bit. I saw some things, and then I was just like, I figured I'd ask you because I couldn't find anything that you had specifically said or the band had, except like a short tweet or something.
I probably said more on here than I've actually said. So
yeah, so I did my job.
and that's been, you know, our basically philosophy is to just try and take the high road, not deal in the muck. I think the hard thing, and this is like the challenge of the modern era and being traversing social media, right? We kind of like exist in this world of social media where people have this direct access to you. And I've never in my life really at scale had people go out of their way to tell me not only that I was going to fail, that they wanted me to fail. And these are people that were your former supporters. And I think that psychologically, even if it's not someone you personally know or someone says it to your face, I think the brain still translates that as like real kind of like, it's difficult not to somehow, you know, accept that emotionally. Right. Like you have to kind of deal with that. And that's a very stressful environment, you know, and that's something we've all dealt with, you know, and so like we've taken breaks from social media, or you've kind of, you know, it's a very tough thing. And it's a challenge. And I'd say it's like the challenge of our time is like to figure out, how do you deal with that? Do you ignore people? Do you challenge them? Right. So if someone comes on your page and says something that's clearly like bad information, right? They don't have the right story. Do you correct them? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and if it's 10 people, can you do that every time? Then you're just someone who's literally like arguing with people on the internet.
I hate that shit.
Exactly. It becomes kind of this this empty kind of void that you just can never get out of, and you try and align yourself in a way that's positive and productive and focus on that. But it is a challenge that we're still going to have to kind of wrangle one way or another. We're not through it. And so it's like I said, not something I anticipated, not something I have a complete great handle on. I have pretty thick skin. Like I said, I would do these articles with VH1. People would post it, and I'd have 100 people call me an idiot, right? But in a weird way, like, that was a lot easier to take because they almost weren't talking to me. They were like, Doc Coyle's an idiot. And I know it was like, whoever wrote this is an idiot, right? And it really wasn't personal, I knew. But this is like, no, I don't like you, and I know you, and I loved your band before, and now I hate your band. You know, like
it's fucked up. It's fucked up to know when somebody out there actively hating you and actively wanting you to fail and trying to do things that help you fail and telling everybody that how terrible you are. It's a weird feeling to have that. Well, and it's especially on your level, I can't imagine how many people, I mean, obviously a lot of people love you too, but then there's a lot of people that don't like you as well. That's got to be stressful.
Well, I think we want to believe, right, that we're unaffected, right? You know, I'm over here. You can't, what's that? You know, sticks and stones, right? Whereas that's bullshit, right? And almost every bar fight that's ever happened was because someone said something first. Okay. So this idea that words are not effective or don't have some way to kind of push you, but the point of this is to provoke, right? That's the mindset of is to get a reaction, is to get you caught in a trap, right? So it is, for me, and I think everyone involved, just anyone who deals in any form of online criticism, how do you actually confront that? Because I've seen literally the biggest artists and most famous people in the world. I see Kevin Durant, right, from Brooklyn Nets, clapping back at people online. I see
Elon Musk, who's a billionaire, one of the richest people in the world. He's clapping back at people.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, so to some degree, it might be the most natural thing in the world to just, if someone comes at you, well, you're going to give it to me, I'm going to give it back 100-fold, right? So what's the best methodology? Is it, I'm going to get rid of comments, or I'm not going to be on social media, or do I ignore it? Do I delete? What
do you think is the best way?
I mean, the best way is probably just to, block them, ignore them. Just don't give them the daylight. I think where I do think there is some applicable recourse is if someone is saying something that's demonstratively false. I think it helps to at least correct the record.
True.
So if you're being criticized on kind of false premises or false, kind of narrative, go, hey, listen, you don't have your facts correct. I'm just, and maybe, if you're in a position to correct that. A lot of this stuff we haven't been in a position to actually talk about publicly. So it's not, and a lot of that is, fear of retaliation, because, we're dealing with a situation where someone, doesn't have the same discipline as we do, or kind of, want for things to be drama free, or not be kind of, just, it's very ugly. It's very muddy in the,
Sure.
We don't want mud, but I think what we've learned about this kind of current era is that it really only needs one side to pull you in the mud, right? So if someone is out and saying you're the worst person of all time, you're kind of already in the, even if you don't say anything, like I was, something I realized during this whole process, I'm like, you guys know, they were like, hey, it's a East Coast, West Coast beef. Remember that in the 90s? It's like,
I remember those, yeah.
Biggie literally never said anything about Tupac. Not one thing. And he still got shot. And it made me aware of, like, you really don't even need two sides to have a feud. Someone could just come at you. And it's almost like when people, they almost presume both sides are going back and forth at each other. You know, it's this weird thing.
Yeah, preach. You're preaching to the choir here. I totally get all this.
But I didn't notice that until I was involved in one, and I was
right.
like, oh, crazy. Where people are like, man, they're doing this, they're doing that. I'm like, we're literally doing nothing.
I know exactly what you're going through. Yeah, that's crazy.
So listen, and to some degree, it's unprecedented because of the tools of social media and the ability to engage in a public arena, right? And where you're kind of at the whims of whatever your power is, right? So the more followers you have, the more power you have, right? So if I have 30 some thousand followers and the other person is 300,000 followers, are we fighting a fair fight?
Well, if you get on Blabbermouth, they got like 1 million followers. So they're you get on Loudwire, some of these websites got millions of people. Rolling Stone, all those. But
again, it's not, Rolling Stone isn't a mouthpiece for Doc Coyle. And then like I said, once you go to that place, right? And if I'm going there and I'm gonna fight the war of words in the pub, now you're in it. Now you're really in it. And then now you have to, and there's always blowback, right? Like if this gets like picked up, right? And then Doc says this quote. Yeah, they always take the worst thing that you say. There will be blowback. Sure. Trust me. Yeah. And that's just because I choose to say a little bit, which is the political narrative is bullshit and it's opportunistic. And the whole point is to manipulate people on partisan terms, is to weave the band narrative into their already pre-existing political narrative, which is we're on team whatever. And if you're with our team, then you'll hate those guys because they're on the other team. And it's like, yeah. And that's what was so interesting to me, because when I saw that thing that it was about politics, I was like, that's interesting, because I heard an interview with you where you said, yeah, I kind of lean left, but I'm more of a centrist and I like to hear other people's viewpoints and I want to understand where they're coming from. So I was like, well, that doesn't sound like that fits with, at least for your perspective. Like you're more interested in hearing other different perspectives than your own. You're not trying to convince other people that what you think is right. You're more trying to understand the other. And I think that's a big thing that's lacking in the world today. Before this kind of environment we're in right now, which I think is a severe breakdown in the ability to actually converse and learn, because there's between now and say 10 years ago or 8 years ago, 15 years ago, at least 10 years ago, we were kind of all operating with the same group of facts, right? Like I could send you, if you came and you said a statement, I go, listen, that's not really true. And I sent you a link. I go, this, you see, that's not really right. You'd be like, oh, I guess I had that wrong. Now, if I sent you that same link, you go, well, that's fake news. That's the liberal, whatever, the mainstream, blah, 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 right? Or the conservative. Yeah, it goes both. Like there's the websites, the news is a partisan. It's not in the middle anymore. So people lack media literacy. They have an inability to ascertain what's reality and not reality. And this, and it's vast. And so I've chosen more to not have the conversation, because if we have an inability to listen to each other in a good faith, right? Where I don't, and I think the biggest problem with this is that people have an inability currently to not presume that if you voted for this person or you're with this side or you tend to lean that way, that you're not either crazy or evil. And people can't do that. They presume, right? If I'm Mr. Lefty and if I'm like, oh, you're a Trump supporter, where you're either crazy or you're evil. That's the only way you could support Trump. Oh, if you're Biden, you're a communist. And it's true. Yeah. You're like, no, it's like people say if you're Republican, you're accused of being a racist.
if you're a Democrat, you're accused, I guess, communist, or the big thing that they say is that a lot of the Democrats are pedophiles and stuff. That's the big thing they push.
Once you get to that point, you're not having a conversation.
That's what
because there's nothing beyond that, right? There's nothing, dude. It's not just pedophiles that they're eating babies.
I'm sorry, it makes me laugh every time because there's people that actually believe this stuff, and it's comical to me. I don't know. Maybe it's true. Like I said, I take it all with a grain of salt, but it does make me laugh. I mean,
it's literally the plot of It.
It's true. Yeah, except for the clown in the sewer and.
No, but it only works because they're afraid, and the clown children because they're afraid. Which is the same thing they say about adrenochrome, or that it's the fear.
You know about it.
So it's but that's what I'm saying. Like, we're not operating in a world of reality. And the thing about I say great liars, and also people who kind of deal in this neo conservative or not conservative conspiracy world, is that it all has a grain of truth in there somewhere, right? So they'll use something like a Jeffrey Epstein, right? And go, well, that happened. So then clearly it's like, well, no, I mean, they weren't children. They were like teenagers, and it was sex trafficking, and it was horrible, and he's a terrible person, but it's not eating babies, right? It's not, but they'll find, and so it's a tough thing. And the truth is, if I'm talking to someone who truly believes in that, right? There's literally nothing I can say. There's no piece of evidence. There's no logic way I can break it down logically that will undo their beliefs, because it starts with the belief, and then they do confirmation bias and work backwards to find evidence that supports something that they already believe. And I say this, it's very, very easy to discredit someone, and for me to get you to believe something bad about a person or institution is very easy. For me to get you to believe something good about a person or an institution is very hard. So with these things, all I'm doing is removing credibility from people and institutions. So and that is basically, for me to win, right? It's not that I gotta get as tall as you, I just have to cut off your legs. And that's basically where we're at. It's a type of kind of information warfare that is effective in that when I'm trying to fight a public war, right? A war of like if I don't like Hillary Clinton, well, I'm just say the craziest, worst thing you can. And I'm not saying here to like prop up Hillary Clinton. I'm just saying, if I'm trying to win and people don't like me, I just make you not like her. And you just take that and like, oh, that worked. So let's just do that with everyone else. Oh, that worked with, whoever you don't like, just go out and just tar and feather them. And it kind of doesn't matter. And it becomes a really difficult scenario. So anyway, I kind of went down a little bit of rabbit hole.
That was fun. That was a fun rabbit hole. No, but I agree. And it goes, and like I said, I think it goes both ways. I think that both sides are doing it to each other. And especially with a lot of this stuff, like like you said, the adrenochrome and stuff like that scares you. But then they take some of the stuff like the Me Too and the racism and stuff, and it's the same thing. They find this grain of truth, and then they blow it out of proportion. I mean, obviously, a lot of those stories are obviously real and legit, but some of it's like they're really like fishing for things. And it's almost like they're happy when they find it. Like, oh, look what this person said in 1974, and I mean, I don't know. It's like, you're right. It's so negative. It's like, it's not about building someone up. It's like cutting everyone else's legs off. Like,
well, this is complex stuff, right? And I think what we're seeing is kind of these competing philosophies where I think moral panics are created. And then people start seeing monsters in the shadows, right? So if you're, and I say it's like, I think it's funny that like the word woke is mainly utilized for people very left of center. But I actually think everyone's woke, but they're woke to their thing, right? So
Right.
if I'm, really, like, if my idea is everyone's racist, right? So now I'm attuned to an idea. Now I'm going to start seeing things that maybe are there, maybe aren't there. That's why I'm seeing Monsters in the Shadows.
That's a great. You should make that a song. That's a cool title.
What?
Monsters in the Shadows. I've never heard that.
Yeah, but it's this thing of, once you make yourself aware to it, then you're going to see it everywhere.
Right.
And so whatever that awareness, whether that's, and the thing is, I just don't think the world is a very absolute place. I think it's a lot more nuanced. I think it's a lot more, you have to look at every situation for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
But people don't have the ability to do that. They can only draw big generalizations, I think. And that's because it takes too much work to just divide things as they are. I think people have to we tend to draw narratives and make pattern recognition. So
it's like, no, I think the solution is not go check out the other party's news site or check out this website. Get off the internet, go out into the real world and just start talking to people. I remember the first time I went down to the South, I was so curious about the South because I hear all these things. I see, the South is racist. And so I'm thinking, like, I'm going to the South. What?
Where do you live?
I'm from Seattle, and then I live in Phoenix now. But so I'm going to the South. We're going to North Carolina, and we drove around South Carolina as well. So I'm thinking there's going to be Confederate flags everywhere. There's going to be like racist stuff everywhere. The people I talked to are going to be really racist. And I just didn't, I saw a little bit of that, but it wasn't like the media portray. Like, I thought the South was all these like redneck racist people. There may be some of those people there. I'm not saying it's zero, but it was like not what I was like, oh, this is pretty much just like the rest of America. Like, especially like Charlotte is just, it's like any other big city. It's like Denver. It's like Seattle. It's Phoenix.
But here's the divide though. There's no such thing as this, red state, blue state divide. That's not what it is. The divide is between urban and rural. So if you go to major cities,
that's like I said, we drove around I was like looking for like,
here's the thing. The cities are liberal.
Of course. Yeah, that's true. For sure. The big cities, yeah.
And that is, by the way, it's not because of some grand conspiracy. It's just the lifestyle of living in a city tends to make they're more diverse. You live closer together, so you tend to think more in collectivist terms. If you live in a rural area, you are literally more on your own, right? If you call the cops, it might take them 20 minutes because everyone lives further away.
Right.
You need a gun because you have a lot of land and maybe there's going to be a animal on there, or hunting is part of your culture and it's a little more normalized. There's all these things, you're a little less trusting of people because you live in a place where there's not that many people, and you're more self-reliant because of just the terrain and the way you live. And so there's a lot of things are embedded that are not, that people presume. It's just, like I said, it is steeped in this bad faith, and listen, in being a musician, our bread and butter is playing down south and in Texas and in middle America, right? So you get to know the people and you get to get out of these fucking stereotypes that I think people have a very difficult time not presuming that just because someone lives a different lifestyle than them, that they're a bad person. And that most of us are really products of our environment, right? Like the people in rural areas tend to be more conservative because the environment imposes these kind of invisible pressures to fit in, right? Same thing in the city. There's a little more pressure to be liberal, or to, at least, even if you don't believe certain things, at least project that you do, right? So that people don't.
That's a good point.
Yep, right. So I would say the liberal areas are not quite as liberal as people think they are, and the conservative areas aren't quite as conservative as people think they are. But people feel this outward pressure to kind of fit in. And like my takeaway from 2016 was like to listen more, expand, don't be in the bubble, right? And unfortunately, I feel like so many people did the opposite. They hunkered more. Our echo chambers are tighter, more restrained, but that's a kind of, you need a vast self-awareness. But I think people feel like they're individual threats, right? So if you're on the right, you're like, critical race theory is in every school and they're brainwashing our children, and it's going to be, I don't know what they always say, with like camps or bread lines, I don't know, some crazy thing, like the economy is going to be destroyed because they're going to, I don't know, there's always going to be something, right? And the left thinks that it's going to be authoritarianism, and honestly I think there's actually a little more credence in that. But if every interaction you really believe is like this, if we elect the wrong person, this will be the end of the world, or the end of
yeah,
like, and the truth is, I do think, at least with the right, it's like they ain't buying all those guns for no reason, right? Like they're preparing for something, and because they're being hyped up that you're going to need those guns because of tyranny, right? The Second Amendment to fight tyranny of what might manifest itself in a lot of ways. So I think that temperature is so high, and all these media segments are always telling you this election is the most important election in your life.
But honestly, is it really though? Because like I look at all the elections and I go, I don't know that it made that big of a difference in my life personally. Like if I had just turned off the newspapers and the TVs and the social media, if I didn't know, I don't know that it would. I mean, maybe the price of gas or corn is different. I don't know, but
I just think it depends who you are, right?
It's exaggerated a little, I think.
Well, no, listen, I think if you're relatively middle class, relatively self-sufficient, I think the ebbs and flows of the federal government probably affect you very little, right? Your taxes go up a little bit, your taxes go down a little bit, and it's really how but I think where these things are felt are on the margins, right? Like the day that Trump got in, like you had all these people, these refugees who were like slated to come. They were like on a waiting list. They were like waiting in a camp, and they're like, oh, I'm leaving to go to America on Tuesday. And they're like, no, you're not. And that's it. You go back to some war-torn part of Africa or something, and you're fucked, right? I remember like reading those stories and things like that. Like to that person, who got
that's true,
or hurt their life, right? So it's things like that that matter. But I think for so someone like myself, if I ignored it, would I be pretty much okay? Yeah, because I do okay enough. I'm not necessarily overly reliant on a welfare program, but there's certain things like like I live in California and they have a pretty great healthcare system where I get subsidies for healthcare. So my healthcare that would cost $400 costs $130.
Nice. That's not bad at all.
Things like that, we're like, okay, but by the way, that would exist in California even if Obamacare didn't exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are things like that that are pretty actionable. You go, okay, that I can see how that affects my life. But
yeah, probably the local government's more important than the federal for a lot of people.
But even if that were true, would my one little peasy ass vote really have swung anything, right, one way or another, right? That's the other thing. So even if I was super clued in and like put all my eggs in this basket, ultimately I'm just one vote, right? And I'm probably not going. No one election, local or otherwise, is going to be swayed because of that. So
yeah, we got to band together. But okay, we got off a huge tangent. But no, I did want to ask you. So I mean, moving on from Tommy, now you look for a new singer, and you had about 20 possibilities, and you whittle it down to 5. Who were some? Can you say who some of the possibilities are, or is that like disrespectful to the?
I don't really want to say it at this moment.
Okay.
I feel like we're kind of I almost would rather when we're like we're up and running, we have music out, we're kind of doing things, because there are some singers that are great and I want to get a lot of attention, and I want to help their careers out as well, because there were people who are close, who I just think are awesome.
Yeah.
That just didn't ultimately, we went for with a different choice.
Yeah.
But because I think right now we just want to focus on DL.
Yeah. So you guys unanimous decision to choose him. And you said he's easygoing, easy to get along with, even temperament, not too high or too low. But so what can you tell us about the upcoming album? I think I heard it's called Dear Monsters. Like, when does it come out? Do you have any song titles? Are there any cover songs or?
So I'm not going to divulge any song titles right now, because I have not been given that.
Okay.
And when it's coming out, again, usually the way labels work are they're not going to give you like a release date until you essentially turn in a record done.
Okay.
And we were pretty much, we thought we were done. And then label wanted they wanted some different kind of songs. So we went back to the drawing board, and I think made like 4 or 5 new songs on top of the 13 we already had. And with that, it was kind of, it's just something Better Noise does, because they kind of want to like push you to the brink, because you never know, you might pull a hit out of your hat, right? And we got some really cool new songs out of it. So, but hopefully we'll have the mixes and masters pretty soon. But I think this whole time, I think we were looking at fall sometime.
Okay, it is, because it is going to be 2021 for sure.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. It's all recorded. You just got to remix it and
just mix it. Just finish mixing it. Because like I said, because we added songs at the end.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just a process. And our producer was who was mixing, was like working on another record. So
who's the producer? Can you say that is?
Joseph McQueen. We work with kind of a lot of different people. We have a very protracted system kind of working on songs. We work with some people on this, work with some people on this, but we've done a lot, pretty much most of the vocals, maybe about half the songs musically we've done with Joseph. And also it's Josh from As I Lay Dying is his partner. So they at a Sparrow Sound. And so he's doing the mixing. He mixed the last record as well. He did the drums with him. So yeah, so it's just been, listen, this album feels like our own little Chinese democracy, because we started it at the beginning, the beginning of the pandemic, 2020. And yeah, so what can I say about the album? I think it's much more streamlined in terms of the sound, in that I think we've kind of tweaked in the edges a little bit of the heavy side of the band and the kind of commercial side of the band, so that things feel more like it's one band, as opposed, I feel like the last record felt a little ADD, in my opinion, where it's just, so, and I just think overall the songwriting is much better. Did
the new singer help out with the songwriting?
He wrote one song, DL wrote, and then he, wrote vocals and lyrics. I mean, at least a half dozen songs, like, or wrote or co-wrote with the band. So he definitely contributed quite a bit. And he's a great writer. He's a great, musically and vocally. So it's a real asset to have DL involved, and it's exciting. And covers, like, we had some covers left over because we were doing this Patreon thing, but I don't think any of those are going to make it. But I'm actually working on a cover right now that is still being put together. So who knows if it makes, I doubt it'll make the record, but maybe it'll come out at some point. Who knows? But we'll see. Because I think, philosophically, I think there was an idea to kind of step away from the cover thing for a minute, because it was so kind of pervasive, and to kind of put the focus on the originals.
Didn't you? So yeah, are you kind of in a cover band with Whitfield Crane from Ugly Kid Joe, or was that just like a one-time thing?
The wedding band, yeah, it's a cover band. It does like Priest and Sabbath and bunch of funk tunes. The wedding band, yeah,
that's what it's called, the wedding band.
Yeah. But like I said, we done they've done at least 1 or 2 shows before I joined the band, but I've done 2.
Okay. Yeah, I might be a weirdo, but I'm a big Ugly Kid Joe fan. I had Dave Fortman on. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's a producer too. It's a really interesting guy.
No, dude, it's completely surreal to be in a band with Whitfield and like text with him and hang out with him. Cause I literally, at the same time I was watching Guns N' Roses and Megadeth videos. So and dude, and he's so incredible. Like just in a room. Cause so many bands today, it's like backing tracks and auto-tune and just to like be in a room with an incredible singer.
Yeah, he is amazing. Underrated for sure. Like,
yes. And almost where I'm like, he should be way more famous than he is, in my opinion.
Right? I always thought so. Yeah, for sure. He hasn't done your show yet, has he?
No, we've talked about it. And basically they have a new record or something coming out. So
yeah.
We wanted to time it.
Okay.
Around then, but we're gonna get him on the show. I tried to do it when we had the last show, but we were literally busy all day, every day. Okay. So we couldn't work it out. But he is, and he has just stories for days, and he's such like a bombastic personality. I can't wait to get him on the show.
Oh, damn, I want to have him on my show. I keep reaching out to him, and I'm like, they just don't but maybe they're waiting until maybe then he'll do a bunch of junket or whatever. Maybe it can be part of the.
I've got 5 minutes left. I have
yes.
I have to do my other show, but if you want to have anything else, we can kind of wrap it up.
Okay, yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, I kept you way longer. My last thing is I always just end with a charity of the guest choice. Is there a charity or nonprofit that you like to work with or you want to promote here at the end?
What, I had something here. Damn, I lost. So I was doing when I first started doing what's it called? Cameo. I was actually giving money to a charity that was for COVID relief workers.
Oh, okay.
But I actually don't even have it in front of me. So I was doing that. And then I found this I guess the answer is I don't have a regular one. So I kind of switched around. And then I found this one that's actually to help develop clean water in.
Ooh, that sounds good.
The third world, and I cannot find that one either.
That's okay. Just send me the link and I'll put it in the notes. So clean water, I'll put it in the notes of this episode and people can click on that and throw a few. I'll put obviously the Bad Wolves website as well. People can check everything out on that. I'm sure you guys have a website, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it was. I don't even last month in our site. Kind of forget that websites exist.
Yeah, I'll put that on there, but that'll have the links to all your social media and all that stuff as well. And so, yeah, if people want to check all that stuff out, they can. So thank you so much for doing this. I'll let you get to your next podcast. You're a busy man, so I appreciate you squeezing me in.
Hey, anytime. This is a lot of fun. It's actually enjoyable to do an interview with someone who's prepared.
Yes.
And we had a nice flow. Even political stuff, I get a little worried because I feel like it's difficult for people to listen and not, now you're this person. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, because I think you keep an open mind. I think that's why we're able to have and I think we're both pretty central. So I don't think it's like, we're screaming at each other. Like, I really like hearing different people's perspectives because everyone, like you pointed that out, everyone has a different perspective. So
here's the problem. When you're a fairly centrist person, even if you lean one way to a partisan, you seem like the other side.
Right. No, that's true. I've been accused of being a Trump supporter and a flaming liberal. So I don't know.
But that's what I'm saying. So to someone who has a skewed idea of reality, you seem like you're
right
from the other side. So I'm just saying it's a very difficult time to traverse these issues in a way where we're all, like I said, just engaging in good faith. So
yeah, no, I really appreciate it. I thought it was a great discussion. So hopefully everyone else agrees.
Definitely, Chuck. Well, listen, you have a great day. Thanks so much for the talk. And I'll, definitely appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Doc. See you later. All I can say is, wow. I think I'm still just blown away with this interview. We discussed so many things, obviously music, and that part was fascinating and his story. But I don't know. I kind of enjoyed all the social issues and the rabbit holes that we went down. I never really designed this show to be like that. In fact, I've tried to steer clear of politics at the show's inception, but now I feel like it's just one of those things that you just can't avoid. It's on everybody's mind, and I think it's okay to discuss it a little here and there. especially if it ties into other subjects. And sometimes it's just so hard to avoid. What I don't want to do is get on big rants and arguments defending one political party over the other, or this politician is great, or this one's terrible. But I really enjoyed the back and forth that Doc and I had on all these topics, and I hope you did too. So make sure to follow Doc and Bad Wolves on social media, and of course go see them if they come to your town on tour. You can follow me on social media as well, and your likes, shares, and comments help me more than you can know. And if you want to go that extra mile, like I said, you could write me a review on iTunes or wherever you listen. The link for the iTunes review is in the show notes. You just have to scroll all the way down to the bottom to write the review. And of course, you can subscribe to the show on YouTube or wherever you listen, and that way you won't miss any future episodes. And I do have some really great guests booked, and some other ones that will hopefully be confirmed soon. So, okay, I will end it now. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, and remember to shoot for the moon.